guys, welcome back to the Discipline Life Podcast, the place where we talk all about power differential relationships and domestic discipline. I'm Arya, and this is my husband, Coda.
Hey, you did good. I don't know how you nail that intro every week, but you do. Do good.
Well, thank you. So on today's podcast, we are going to be talking all about aftercare and how it relates to domestic discipline.
Aftercare. There's my cinematic voice. I know. Sorry, I'm getting an eye roll here.
He always makes himself sound so silly. Anyway, do you want to start out by just explaining what aftercare is?
Yes. So aftercare is obviously after either punishment or I'd even say a reset.
Maintenance, for those who are unfamiliar
Maintenance. Sorry. We use that word reset, and it's a maintenance. But aftercare is the interaction and the things that you do after a punishment or a maintenance spanking.
Well, and I would even say that aftercare can happen after non-physical punishments as well, maybe just in a different way.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was just trying to get a very condensed definition for them.
But it's definitely very important after physical punishment, especially.
Yes, absolutely.
And to expand on your condensed version of that, it's a system to reconnect.
Yeah.
To reconnect and to process the punishment or maintenance spanking, to process, what happened and just kind of reconnect after that.
Right.
So. And
that can, well, we'll go. Should we go into specifics now?
I mean, let's just let the conversation go where it goes.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, aftercare can be things that are more than just physical touch and things like that. Like you maybe could have water available, have some things available to help facilitate that.
Well, let's talk about, because I think that aftercare really has a few different components to it. There's physical aftercare.
Right.
And then there's emotional aftercare. And then I would say even beyond that, there's relational aftercare.
There we go. Let's work on those three categories.
So let's first talk about the physical aftercare. That would be making sure that you have water available.
Right.
Taking care of the physical needs, right? Make sure you have water. Make sure you have Kleenex.
Yep.
If tears have been a part of the process. Make sure that, you just have anything that you may need. If you apply lotion to the skin to kind of soothe the skin after particularly...
or an oil or whatever it is.
Whatever it is, that if you use anything to kind of soothe the skin, have that available. Trying to think, is there anything else like physical aftercare?
Well, and I was going to say, you may just want to have some like wipes available. Well, you said tissues, but wipes available for anything.
Like a wet wipe situation.
Yeah, just you never know. I mean, sometimes those can come in handy for things. Well,
I wouldn't necessarily worry about like snacks because that's
no.
that seems unnecessary. I'm just trying to think of any physical need.
I'm sure I can't remember. Have you stumbled upon instances where people are like, "Oh yeah, we have snacks"?
Not in a domestic discipline scenario.
Right.
That's more like for like erotic play. I've heard of people
but not
kind
for
of having
domestic discipline. I don't think.
Right, and so for a discipline scenario, I don't necessarily think that that's necessary.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know. It doesn't seem necessary for us.
True.
But I'm just trying to think of all like the potential physical needs. Maybe have a blanket.
That's what I was going to say next was a blanket or something to cover up with or
Hmm.
whatever it is.
Especially if your spanking happens to be like, if the person being spanked is spanked in the nude,
Right.
then having a blanket there can definitely be very comforting.
If you're in a, I mean, this would just go for in general, but if you're in a space like ours and it could be potentially cold, make sure you have a heater, maybe an air conditioner out there to make things a little bit more
I was about to
pleasant.
say I definitely think like temperature control, but that's
I was
that's
going to
in
say that's kind of
general.
a general thing. That's not necessarily to,
I think the
uh,
vast majority of people are inside of their homes.
yeah,
Um, we kind of have a unique setup here. Um, but yeah, I think I mean, if
that
you
does that for the physical part, maybe.
please leave a comment if you guys have any
Yeah,
other ideas for like physical after. Really, leave a comment of your aftercare.
yeah, that would be helpful to us to see as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Love to have a conversation about that
for
and
sure.
for people to see different perspectives on
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
Because aftercare is so unique to each couple.
yes,
I mean, you can take ideas from other people, and really, that's really anything.
mm-hmm.
In domestic discipline, you take ideas from other people, but these are all very unique to each individual couple. So
Mm-hmm.
every couple is going to have just slightly different aftercare practices and really slightly different discipline practices.
Right, right.
So let's go ahead
So
and
we
kind
talked
of,
about the physical
right,
things. What was the next category?
um, emotional.
Emotional. There we go. The emotional. Um, well, this is, especially in the aftercare, this is where you need to really emphasize for the emotions. The first place my mind goes to is to emphasize that things, especially in a punishment, things are done, over with, to reassure
The
your
forgiveness
partner. The
aspect.
forgiveness aspect, exactly.
So I would say that that's definitely where you need to start is you need to and really I think that there needs to be a very noticeable shift in the energy
Right.
and in the tone and in the body language where during the punishment there may have been more of a strict tone, more of a stoic energy, and then during aftercare that all shifts
Right.
and you're more comforting, reassuring, forgiving.
Yeah, yeah, and those are the um, you really, and if your partner is having doubts, that's the time to really put the doubts to rest and to, as you already said, be encouraging and reassure and try to help them wipe that slate clean. Whatever it is that they need to feel better about the situation moving forward, to know all is forgiven, all has been made right, and all can go forward.
Right. So, I mean, even to say something like, I know you can do this. You made a mistake, but I know that you can do better. And
Yeah,
just little things like that. And also part of the emotional aftercare is having that physical touch.
right.
You know, having gentle touches, you know, coming together as far as like hugging, you know, maybe one of my favorite things is when you like pet my hair.
You're right. Right.
That's one of my favorite
You like to
things.
rest your head in my lap
I do.
and let me pet your hair.
And so just little things like that. And I think that the just reassuring and re-emphasizing the love
Yeah.
between you, the devotion, the, commitment to each other. Those are all things that go into the emotional aftercare.
Yes.
And then relationally kind of flows from the emotional aftercare, kind of flows into that relational aftercare.
Yes. Yes. Um, yeah, and I was gonna. So really, these two kind of go hand in hand, if you think about it. The would you say the relational and the emotional. Um, And to a certain extent, there was a little bit there was another physical aspect there because you were talking about me petting your hair,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's another
Yeah.
physical aspect, and they all really intertwine uh, in many ways
In many
because
ways, I was going to say the the reason I put like petting my hair into the emotional is because physical aftercare, I think of taking care of physical needs.
right,
Well, petting my hair is not taking care of a physical need of what just happened.
that's a good point.
And so I think of like the emotional aftercare is taking care of the emotional needs.
Right, right. Um, okay, yeah. So that's the category. I'm just trying to figure out where the things fit in the categories
Yeah.
that we're talking about. Um, and there, you correct me if I'm wrong. You not only do you do you like when you have your head in my lap and I'm petting your hair and everything, but you like to hear me say, all is forgiven. You're
Yeah, I like that reassurance.
yeah, and and I think what's key in all of this, that all of you that are listening, is you need to really, we've spent a lot of time talking about it, and I feel like we bring this up every episode, but it's good. We spend a lot of time talking about after the aftercare has happened. Was it effective for you? Did you feel reassured? Did you feel empowered, I guess would be the word, to start over, start again? Did I reassure you? Did you feel loved? Did you feel like everything was going to be okay?
Those check ins after the fact are so important to make sure that you're on the same page
Yes.
and to make sure that your discipline has been effective in the right ways.
Yeah, because if if you don't, then this all goes back to, you have to be everything can be very delicate from the standpoint that one thing that's off can really mess this whole thing up and cause resentment or cause there to be hurt feelings. And so you want to try as much as you can to cover these kinds of bases, even with aftercare, because aftercare seems like, oh, it's not that big of a deal from the standpoint that as long as she realizes that everything's fine and all this kind of thing. Really, it isn't. This is not a step you want to just gloss over. That's obviously why we're doing a podcast about it, but this is a step you don't want to just gloss over or jump over.
Because we've made that mistake.
Yeah, we have.
And so
Yeah.
we're speaking from experience to say this really is an important aspect to the overall success.
Because, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm remembering correctly, we one of the reasons this was something that we're speaking from experience and trying to encourage people to do this the right way and to go through this, because some of the punishments after they happen and stuff, you had a hard time moving on. You had a hard time letting it go, and
I did, and I
things.
think that that's maybe just something that I have to work through too.
Yes, but we also realized that it helped if we had talked about it and we put something in place
Sure.
that would encourage you and bring our relationship back, because and put our relationship back together, because that's the important part of it too. If you don't do aftercare right, your relationship can suffer from it. And this is actually supposed to make your relationship better, not worse.
Right, that's very true. And I would say part of the relational aftercare, sometimes there can be this mutual desire to come together physically in a sexual sense.
Right.
That should never be expected.
Agreed.
And
But-
that shouldn't necessarily be routine.
Right. But I wouldn't say that's a bad thing if you decide to follow the aftercare with that.
It's not a bad thing, especially if it is mutually desired. It shouldn't be expected from one party.
Correct.
It should be something that if that is a natural response, to the punishment process, to the forgiveness process, to that desire for closeness and closure
And to reestablish
leads,
that relationship.
yeah, if that leads to a sexual experience, that can be a good thing too.
Yeah, and don't be ashamed of that. Or that feel like, oh, did we do something wrong? Was that no? That's part of you reconnecting. We use that word a lot in
Right.
our relationship, is figuring out a way to reconnect with one another.
Now, on the flip side, I don't know if you've ever really thought about this from your side of the perspective, but is there an aftercare element that you need as the one in authority?
Oh, that's interesting. I For me, I need to know. Like, I like when you put your head in my lap and I can pet your hair and stuff. Um, because there are some of those things that I feel like that reassures me that number one, the punishment worked. Number two, you feel like you're ready to move on, and we can. But and that there is no resentment on your part. You're ready to begin anew. Our relationship has been. I keep using the word reset, but that's why we use that word. That our relationship has been put back where it needed to be, back on track. There we go, back on track.
An interesting thought just popped in my head.
Okay.
So, in our relationship, we have this polarity, right? And so you have authority, and I am submissive to that authority.
Yep.
And so it's this polarity of your strength and my softness. But when I misbehave, when I have an attitude, when I do something that requires punishment,
Uh-huh.
it's because I step out of that softness and become harsh.
Okay. Yeah.
And I need you to, in the punishment, to reestablish your authority, reestablish your,
The hierarchy. No, no.
well, to reestablish that
Yeah.
strength. I need to feel
Right.
your strength and within that punishment. And then during the aftercare, you need me to reestablish and be able to feel my softness reemerge.
Yes, that's actually the way you articulate it is, as usual, is perfect. Yes, I want to reconnect with, yeah. That's a great word. Your softness,
I mean, that's not to
because that's
say
what that
that
is.
that's not to say that I want you to continue to be harsh.
No, 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 no.
I want to feel a sense of strength from you, but I want it to be a gentle strength, if that makes any sense at all.
I call, yeah, it does, because I try to go about it. The terminology I use is tender warrior. You need to be a tender warrior. And the reason I use the word warrior is because I think I'm a protector in many, many ways, on top of everything else. And so that to me is what you're looking for in the relationship, is you need me to be me to be the warrior. You need me to be strong and determined and strict, or what's the word that I'm using? Very solid in at times, and then there are times you need me to be very gentle and tender and loving towards you. And so that's why for me, I always use the term tender warrior.
I like that because to a certain extent, when I'm under your authority, when I'm soft towards you, when I am yielding to your leadership, then you can show that tenderness to me. You still have that leadership.
Yes.
But it can be a gentle leadership. It can be a tender leadership. However, if I step outside that authority, if I start to, you know, be less submissive than what is required of me, then to a certain extent, I need you to show up as the warrior. I need you to show up as the authority and say, no, you're not going to do that. And I can outpace, like from your standpoint, I can
Yeah.
outpace you. I will win this battle Like, you know,
Right. Right.
that's from you to me. Like,
Right.
and sometimes I need you to do that so that I understand your strength and
Right.
I can trust it.
Yes. Right. That's the thing is I think okay, question for you. I think that's exactly what women in domestic discipline relationships are looking for. They're they're looking for the tenderness too, but they want to know that the man is strong and protective, and will even protect them against themselves from the standpoint of putting up those boundaries and make sure that they don't cross those.
I agree with you. I think that as women, especially in today's society, and this is speaking from an American perspective, um, women are told that they have to have a certain level of strength. They have to have a certain level of, boss babe culture inbred into them.
Is that a technical term,
It
boss babe?
is.
Is it really? I've never heard that
I was
before.
about to say that is a
I've
term that
never heard
is
that before.
popular on social media. And so women are told that they have to be all of these things, and we are so conditioned to like live in that masculine space
Right.
that women that desire traditional relationships, women that desire, these gender roles and domestic discipline, they really they are so tired
Mm.
of having to be that strength and be that masculine and be that um you know
Taking on those roles.
taking on
Taking
those.
on the warrior role, right?
Right. And so they really do want their man to step up and say, I've got this. This is where you belong. That, you belong in this submissive role. You belong in this, you know, role of being a caretaker, being a homemaker, being a creative, because, I mean, women are inherently more creative than
Yeah.
men.
But rightfully so, because you're educating children and all of the things that go into homemaking and all of those things.
And I think that men appreciate when their woman is more carefree and more childlike in her spirit.
I can say yes to that. Yes.
And so by the man taking on that leadership and the man taking on that warrior and protective role, she can then be more carefree because she knows that she's living under this protection. She doesn't have to worry about it.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I think is the point of all this, because the critics that are out there that criticize this type of relationship, and it's like, no, the point is that we're trying to keep everything in its order so that relationships can thrive, households can thrive. But if we don't have that, then things get kind of messed up. But yeah, I think that when things are working that way, and when the man, especially, because obviously that's the only perspective I can give here, since I am one, is if he loses either one of those, it's bad. If he's not tender, that's not good for the relationship. But if he loses the warrior part too, that's not good for the relationship.
In relation to his wife.
Correct. That's exactly what I mean. Yeah. That's not.
Yeah, we're not telling men to go out and be tender in their relationships in business
No.
in a professional capacity
No.
or with their friendships. But when it comes to your wife, there is a certain level of tenderness, a certain level of kind-heartedness that you need to bring to it, because women
Yes.
are fragile. They just are. They can't handle a man's aggressive.
I heard a really good analogy about this one time, that women are like fine china, very beautiful pieces, and they have very specific use. But if you bang them too hard, or if you don't take care of them and stuff, they will break. And not to compare you to a possession, but I liked that analogy because it means that you need to be handled a little bit with care.
And that's not to say that women are inherently like weak, but they are weaker than men.
In certain areas, right?
Well, I would say in all areas,
Okay.
but that objectively women are weaker than men.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Sorry. That
Right.
was right. Okay.
But
I
that's
would
not
agree with what you just said.
but that's not to say that women are weak or useless.
Right.
Women have certain strengths and certain skills that lend themselves to being within their role.
Correct. Right.
But if we try to go outside that role and try to go into a man's role, we're never going to be able to accomplish that.
And by the way, vice versa.
And be okay.
Vice versa. That's when we get into where we're at now with some of these men that have been emasculated in the culture. And I don't want to get too much into politics and things like that, but that's where we have it, where men are almost taking on these terrible characteristics of women because they've gone that direction. And when you were talking about women trying to take on man's roles and men almost being put into women's roles.
Yeah, it's very backwards. And I think that people that want a more traditional relationship setup, and let's face it, domestic discipline is a more traditional relationship setup.
Of course.
Not all people that are traditional practice domestic discipline, but it is hard to find someone that practices domestic discipline that doesn't also consider themselves traditional.
Right. So that was kind of a rabbit hole we went down, but to bring it all back around, the point is from the aftercare, in my opinion, is the tender part.
Right.
That's the tender part. The warrior part was the punishment. The aftercare is the tender part. And we need both of these in order to be successful.
Yeah.
But the aftercare is really where the tenderness needs to be in there, and that's your time to reconnect with your wife, your spouse, and make things right again and put her back under that protection. Would you agree?
I would agree.
You were just going to give me this look.
Well, because I think you may have cut me off like mid sentence.
Oh, I'm
there,
sorry. I didn't mean to. I thought you were done.
I can't remember.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off mid-sentence.
No, I think I started the thought that people that want more traditional relationships are looking for that polarity and looking for men to be in their roles and for women to be allowed to be in their roles.
Right. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just trying to keep us on task as usual, and
you're trying to keep us on topic.
Yeah, on topic, and but I do think it was important what we just talked about. But again, I want to just kind of bring it back around. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. I was about to say sometimes these topics they can be kind of quick. And so sometimes we do kind of rabbit hole, and it's a good discussion. I hope you guys enjoy.
Didn't mind it too much. I hope you didn't mind that rabbit hole too much. Hopefully that was still good. Did we cover everything?
I think we did. Definitely leave a comment and let us know what aftercare practices you use.
Or did we miss something that we need to do another podcast on or something?
What your perspective of aftercare is. Do you use aftercare?
Yeah.
Is it intentional, or do you just kind of flow into it naturally?
I want to know if anybody uses snacks in aftercare. Like, are they bringing like their wife's favorite chocolate M&Ms out there or something?
I mean, the reason why I don't think that that's a good idea, at least for me, is it would almost feel like a positive reinforcement.
Right.
Like a positive association with punishment.
That's right.
And
that's
even during aftercare, we don't want to create positive associations.
Right, exactly.
Oh, anyway, so
don't forget to follow us on Patreon. You want to give them?
I was about to say,
stuff?
in the description box, if you're on YouTube right now, in the description box, you will find a link to our Patreon. We have early access to the podcast as well as other perks you can choose from over there. You'll also find our Instagram handles. The podcast Instagram is _discipline life. And my Instagram handle is in my proper place. So you'll find all that in the description box, as well as our email address if you want to reach out by email.
Yeah. And we hope you do. Again, if you have questions, if you have answers for us.
If you like the podcast, please give it a like on YouTube and subscribe if you're not already.
Yeah. Give it the did you say the bell icon?
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I never ring the bell.
I know, I don't ring the bell either. I just don't need that many notifications.
I was about to say, but you can ring the bell for
if you want. If you're a bell person, have us ring the bell.
We typically upload on Fridays, but I'm really bad. I should probably just start doing like a thing where it's like scheduled, but we upload on Fridays, typically in the evenings, but we'll, if
we try to anyway.
If you follow the Instagram, I always put out a story as soon as the YouTube video is live. So, yeah.
Bingo. Well, thanks for tuning in again. We do really appreciate all of you who are listening. Thank you again to our Patreon subscribers. And again, we hope this podcast was informative. We'll see you next time.
All right. Bye, guys.